So accomplishments this past quarter, again, national recognition in the news media of our Good Game Fest. It's the first year of Good Game Fest. We had 9 new sponsors engage with us of that 21 that I mentioned. We developed a partnership with the Baltimore Ravens for the first time. So that was very exciting. In fact, they invited us to showcase Magic at our Good Game Fest at Ravens Walk back in early October. September. And then we launched the Westminster Angel Network. So let me just play this video for you real quick. This is a recap of Good Game Fest. That was the Good Game recap. Obviously, we're emphasizing the values of sportsmanship and healthy gaming attitudes and that, but we also had, you may have seen the clips there of the conference session where we had industry professionals from all over Maryland and some from Virginia that came up to that conference. The second gentleman that spoke, Doug Watley, he's the CEO of Breakaway Games. They're one of the larger game developers in Hunt Valley, Maryland. See if I can get this to advance.
Seems like a lot's in Hunt Valley game-wise.
Yeah, there are a lot. In fact, we also had Greg Street, who's a McDaniel alumni, speak to us virtually from California. He developed World of Warcraft and League of Legends. League of Legends is one of the top esports games right now. They had 80 million people watched one of the most recent big League of Legends games, and compared that to 20 million who watched the Super Bowl. So that's how exponentially larger esports is. And we have the opportunity, because of gigabit fiber, to be a home, to be a mecca for esports here because of the low latency benefits of fiber. All right, so I just want to share a quick testimonial with you. This was an entrepreneur that we ran into through our 1 Million Cups program. So 1 Million Cups is a weekly meeting every Wednesday mornings, 9 to 10 a.m. Recently, we've been meeting at Startup Portal on 140. And it's a program of the Kauffman Foundation, which is the largest philanthropic organization dedicated to entrepreneurship in the country. They're based in Kansas City, which is how I heard of them because I used to live in Kansas City. And the reason why I was looking for a good fiber neighborhood is because they had Google Fiber in Kansas City. So I got spoiled by true symmetric fiber internet that they had there. So this entrepreneur, Judith Walker, she was introduced to the 1 Million Cups program. She came out and spoke. And this is a follow-up with her, I think 2 weeks later, after we had met with her initially. And then I took separately, I took a meeting with her as like a consultation. So I just want to share with you. I mean, that's just an example of what we're doing in the entrepreneurial community here in Westminster. And we would never have met Judith if it wasn't for the 1 Million Cups program that we brought here. All right. Okay, what's ahead for next quarter? So we're actually so Magic has been approached by Mother Seton Academy, which is a private school in Baltimore that's funded by the Catholic Church. It's a tuition-free private school, as I understand it, mostly catering to inner city youth. And they approached us to lead their technology club. So we're actually being paid now. We're being contracted with them. So that's another little profitable initiative that we can maybe start to grow and see if there's other organizations that want to bring Magic in to teach these technology clubs. That's October through June. We just had our most recent Capture the Flag 11. That was this past weekend. We had teams from Bosnia, teams from Estonia. We actually had a Mother Seton team. It was an all-girls middle school team, all African-American female girl team. And they got to 16th place, which was amazing for first-time middle schoolers. So we're really excited about that particular group of girls because they could go on to compete in Cyber Patriot, which is a national program. So we're really working on cultivating that as well. We're going to launch Good Game mini tournaments. So that's going to be at Tables and Towers again. We're going to try to do those monthly. We actually already have McDaniel is interested. They have a student group that's an esports club. They're interested in helping us fund the prize pool for that competition. Another interesting fact about Good Game Fest, we uncovered a student who goes to Westminster High School. I'm not sure what year he's in, but he is a ranked national Rocket League player. And that may not mean anything to everybody here, but he's kind of a big deal. And we had no idea, that he was here in our community, and we kind of surfaced him through this program. And so we're really excited at the prospect of having a professional esports player in our community that could go on and actually make quite a living at this. And esports players these days are making $300,000-$400,000 a year. So I know we're all in the wrong career, right? So our next big event is Business Risks 2021 at Carroll Community College. We're partnering with Carroll Community College for that event. It was entirely virtual last year, but this year will be in person with a virtual option. And we're going to have a VIP reception at Old Westminster Winery. So please help us sort of cross promote that event. It's really meant for small business owners, anyone in risk management. We have Ron Gula from, he's a Howard County based entrepreneur who started a company called Tenable. He's also very philanthropic. Gives away millions of dollars a year for cybersecurity initiatives around the country. People from Colfax Corporation, Data Tribe in Columbia. So it'll be a good networking opportunity for any business people here in Carroll County. And then we're going to have our second investment dinner for the Westminster Angel Network at Paradiso. That'll be November 17th. Judith, who you heard from there in that testimonial from NurseLink, she'll be one of the presenting companies at that dinner. And then more of our 1 Million Cups Westminster weekly meeting. I believe that's it. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Mr. Dodge. Any questions for Mr. Dodge? Any comments? Good stuff. All right.
Just a good job.
Thank you.
It's always exciting stuff, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity here in the near future to discuss magic projects in the context of our budget planning, because I think one of the things that we want to make sure we're able to do more easily in the future is be able to take advantage of opportunities to be able to support some of these initiatives that are very creative, but haven't in the past had an easy place to fit them into what we were doing. So we need to have that conversation with you soon as we're preparing the budget to make sure that we're ready to take advantage of some of those opportunities. Right, very good. Well, thank you. It's great to have you again. If it's all right with my colleagues, I'd like to take an item out of order and pull it up from unfinished business. We have, as I noted earlier, Mr. Culver is a representative from the county here this evening, and he's a busy man. We don't want to keep him any longer than we have to. He's probably been, at the very least, let him get home to his family. But he's not going to go prosecute anybody else tonight.
Not tonight.
All right.
Not with that for the day.
All right. So let's go ahead and take that item up. Adoption of resolution number 21-05. And let's turn to Mr. Depot to fill us in on where we are on that.
Okay, thank you. Again, this is the proposed resolution 2105. This is amending the adopted water and sewer allocation policy and the accompanying master distribution chart. On October 11th, 2021, the resolution was introduced to the Mayor and Common Council. At this meeting, the Mayor and Common Council expressed concerns with the state's attorney's office site plan and whether the site plan itself can meet the zoning ordinance parking requirements and the movement of water from the commercial industrial use category. The Mayor and Common Council continued resolution 2105 to allow more time to deliberate concerns and requested staff to work with Carroll County to bring forth resolution 2105 in the future. Mr. John Bowers, with the county building construction chief, submitted a letter dated October 22nd, 2021, stating that Carroll County is currently evaluating the parking needs for the state's attorney's office with a goal of providing various options to meet the city of Westminster's parking regulations. Such information is expected to be provided on or before November 19th, 2021. If the Mayor and Common Council wishes to approve this tonight, staff is recommending that any approval is subject to two conditions. One, amend the water and sewer allocation policy to allow for the transfer of water for public projects only with the approval of the Economic and Community Development Committee and the owner of the property transferring water. And two, amend the master distribution chart to reallocate 500 gallons per day in 2021, 627 gallons per day in 2022, 2023, and 2024 from the commercial industrial category to the public projects category for the state's attorney's office public project only. So in other words, any movement of water will be only allocated for this public use. And that completes my report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Depot. Any questions for Mr. Depot? Or would anybody from the county like to be heard before we discuss this any further?
Are we going to discuss it after we
Yeah.
put it into,
Yeah.
put a motion in?
Yeah, well, we have a motion from what? No, we didn't. We didn't get a motion.
No, you get a motion.
Right, I was thinking that. So we do need a motion.
Mr. President, I'll go ahead and move for the adoption of resolution 21-05.
All right, thank you, Mr.
And I'll
Kavachi.
second.
We have a motion from Mr. Kavachi and a second from Mr. Hoff. All right, so now let's go ahead.
Mr. President.
Mr. Kavachi.
So, I know that I spoke a little bit at our last meeting relative to some of our concerns. I think there's been a good spirit of cooperation across the board when it comes to the county, state's attorney's office in terms of information and things that we were looking for. And I feel much better where we're at on this, Mr. President and colleagues. It is, always unfortunate when you've got to move water away from things that, are good economic development drivers. But in this particular case, obviously having a functioning state's attorney's office is pretty important to the community. I know it's important to our chief for sure. I'm supportive of this, and I think we need to go ahead and make this happen. That's where I'm at with it, Mr.
All
President.
right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Kavachi. Anyone else wish to be heard?
I'll just make a
Mr. Hoff.
comment or two quickly. I know there were some concerns regarding parking and certainly a valid concern, but this is just the beginning of the process with water allocation. Whenever plans are drawn up, they're going to be submitted to planning and zoning. The planning and zoning commission will have an opportunity to look at it, and I'm sure we'll be able to work through whatever technical issues we have to. This is really just the first step to ensure that there is water for this building, because if we don't have a water allocation for the building, it's creates problems for them moving forward. So I think this is just and I'm sure whatever issues that the city and state attorney's office and the county need to work through, we'll be able to work through them in a collaborative manner. So
All right.
I'm very comfortable moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Hoff. Anyone else? Just note that we do have a letter from Mr. John Bowers in which he states we are confident that we, meaning the county, will be able to meet the parking requirements and will share this information with city design review staff when the information is available, which again should be in a few weeks. I understand it from Mr. Depot's comments. And I've had the opportunity to read the staff package and the comments there, so I'm comfortable as well. And so if there's no further discussion, we're ready for the vote on the resolution. All those in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have, the ayes have it, and the resolution is adopted. All right, thank you very much for coming again.
Thank you for your time and attention. I appreciate you taking us out of order.
All right, thank you, Mr. Coleman. Take care. Night, everybody.
Thank you.
You'll have water in your building.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
See y'all later. Have a good night.
Poor guy that has to figure out the parking part.
Have fun.
Puzzles are my thing.
Very good. All right, we'll go back now to our regular order. We've conducted our presentations. We have under public hearings this evening. We have one item on the consent calendar. The consent calendar, may I have a motion, please, to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
There's been a motion by Ms. Gilbert. Is there a
Second.
second? And a second by Mr. Kavachi. All those in favor of the consent calendar, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have, the ayes have it, and the consent calendar is approved. Report from the mayor. The mayor unfortunately is not feeling very well this evening, so she's not able to be with us. We'll move on down to reports from standing committee, and we'll start with our liaison to the Arts Council, Mr. Dayhoff.
Thank you, Mr. President. My report is simple. We continue to plan for the annual Festival of Wreaths that brings a lot of folks into town. That's my report, Mr. President. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, Mr. Dayhoff. Mr. Hoff, Economic and Community Development Committee.
I just wanted to let everybody know we will be having a meeting on Tuesday, November the 2nd at 3:30 p.m. at 45 West Main. We have a lot of miscellaneous topics. We have several businesses that are looking to potentially locate to Westminster, and there's some technical issues we just need to clean up potentially with text amendments regarding zoning. And we're going to be looking at that. Obviously, we're not going to change our zoning code just to accommodate a business if it doesn't make sense globally. But sometimes what will happen is somebody will want to come into the city and their particular use might not be allowed for some technical reason, and it really should be because it's appropriate use within that district. So those are the kind of issues that we're going to be looking at, and we have a few of those to address. We also are going to just take a little look at the plastic bag ordinance because there's, now that's been actually implemented for a while. We're having a few technical difficulties with, I would say, some of the bigger box stores not necessarily being in compliance or misrepresenting things. So that's going to be a subject of conversation. And that's it. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Hoff. Finance Committee, I'll report that the Finance Committee met last week. We had a good in-depth discussion of where the city is with our ARPA funding and how we're managing those funds. We also discussed the budget amendment that will be on the agenda a little bit later this evening. Personnel Committee, Ms. Gilbert.
I have nothing.
Thank you. Public Safety, Mr. Cavacci.
Couple items, Mr. President. First off, the chief and Major Gibson both attended the Maryland Chief of Police Association's professional development seminar last week. It was a 3-day event, and they have reported back that they picked up a lot of good information. I'm sure they probably gave some good information too, would be my guess, given that our chief enjoys quite a positive reputation around in the community. I'm sure when he speaks, people listen. But he felt like he felt real good about where we're at regarding policing and police strategies in particular after the meeting, and did learn some things as well. Also, I know we spoke about this. The chief took a really important lead role regarding some funding that was acquired by the county. It was through the health department, right, Chief? Is that where that kind of work that you're leading that? And that they're starting to, they got that award, and they've got some meetings in terms of how they're going to use that money and implement some things relative to it. And the chief may speak a little bit more about that at some point in time. And, patrol detectives, they're continuing to work hard and close cases. You hear about in a lot of communities where you've got a lack of responsiveness from the police department when it comes to, paying attention to small things like theft and shoplifting and things like that. But, I think I've always been under the belief that when you don't pay attention to things like that, they grow into bigger problems. And I'm betting most of you agree with me. And the patrol units and the detectives are doing a really good job of staying on top of those things and closing cases, things like shoplifting and theft and things like that, they're still crimes, and we're still, treating them as such and making sure that they are dealt with accordingly. So that's all I have, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cavacci. And you want to roll on into Public Works?
I do. Basically, only a couple of things, although Public Works, it's only a couple of things. It's a bazillion things every day, all day that they deal with. But they did yeoman's work in getting set up for the Halloween parade. I understand it wasn't maybe quite as heavily as attended as others have been, but that doesn't change the amount of work and effort that goes into it on their part to make that happen. So we're always appreciative of that. They did have a water main break yesterday afternoon at Bond and Park, and they got it resolved. Those things are not easy and take a lot of manpower, and they do a wonderful job usually of getting them fixed relatively quickly. So that's all I have, Mr. President.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Cavacci. Recreation and Parks, Mr. Dayhoff.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're planning a Parks and Recreation Council Committee meeting coming soon. If you have any agenda items of interest, be sure to get that information to the city administrator so she can put them on the agenda. And I guess we'll look at the pool, and we'll look at Wakefield Valley and some things like that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Dayhoff. And the Technology Committee, we're gonna get a meeting organized here. We've got some issues we need to discuss as soon as we know Mr. Davidson's back and ready to spend some time talking with us. Good. So we'll be working with the city administrator on that. All right, time for council comments and discussion. When council members have the opportunity to raise any issues that are not elsewhere on the agenda or in a committee report. And we'll start with Mr. Hoff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a few comments. Number one, I just wanted to say this is the first time as a newly elected official that I attended the retreat. I thought it was fantastic, very beneficial. Thought it was great to kind of clarify roles and what our priorities are moving forward. So I really look forward to kind of implementing a lot of what we discussed there. I also attended a virtual town hall with Senator Ben Cardin this afternoon. It was sort of interesting. It was through MML and MACO. They were talking a little bit about climate change and some of the funding that might come about related to that, and something that we don't certainly have to discuss tonight. But I would be curious from a staff standpoint, just to kind of learn a little bit better, and this might be up your alley, Mr. Glass, like the additional flooding and some of the issues that other cities have. I would hazard to guess that we're in a much better position than a place like Annapolis, but I'd be very curious to have a better understanding of how some of those issues might impact us in the future. And because I have a feeling, depending on what gets approved, there might be additional funding sources that we can find, that whether it's stormwater management related or otherwise. So I just would like to have a little bit of a better sense of that going forward at some point in time. In other MML news, the legislative priorities regarding the long-term restoration of the highway user revenue funds and the ability to enable the local municipalities to have their own police accountability boards were both voted on and approved at the general membership meeting at the MML Fall Conference on October 12th. So that's it that I have today. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hoff. Mr. Kavachi.
Well, Mr. President, first, I hope that the governor and the legislators will listen to a little bit of that in terms of those votes. That's important. Council member Huff alluded to, we had our retreat last week. It was an all-day event where the six of us and our city administrator spent the day kind of looking forward strategically over the next couple of years. I thought it was incredibly productive as well. I was particularly pleased and enthusiastic about Ms. Imholz's input and role that she played in that meeting. She was frank about some things that she felt needed to change. And we agreed as a body to make some of those changes, and they're marginally uncomfortable in terms of some of the things we're changing, but I think it's going to be good. And I think it gives her hopefully the ability to do some of the things that I know she's going to be capable of doing, and we're all hoping that she's going to do. When we hired Ms. Imholz, I think we were all very excited. It's been 9 weeks. How long?
Tomorrow's 7.
7. Geez. Okay. Time flies. Sorry. That's all it's been. Well, you've done a lot in those 7 weeks.
Yeah.
And I think we are all still very pleased, and probably will be for quite some time. And that meeting did nothing more than reassure us that we made a really good choice. And I'm very enthusiastic about where we're headed for the next couple of years, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kavachi. Ms. Gilbert.
Councilman Huff took care of my MML notes that I was going to have, so I'm not even going to go review that from the fall conference. The retreat, I will agree with everybody else, was extremely productive, and I welcome Ms. Imholz to our group, and I too am looking forward to the future years of progress for Westminster. So I am not going to elaborate any more than that. I have nothing else other than to pass it on to the next council.
Thank you. Mr. Dayhoff.
Thank you, Mr. President. Comprehensive Planner Andrew Gray made an excellent presentation at the MML conference, and I would look forward to his presentation being scheduled for the council his presentation, excellent presentation, was on the effects of global warming on municipalities, and he killed it. It was just a great presentation. So I would look forward to that being scheduled sometime soon. And that'll be my report, Mr. President. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hoff. I'll just add my own, comments on the strategic planning retreat. We didn't really retreat anywhere. We just went down to the basement of the city office building, and it was a good site to be able to do it. And we were, I think we had, as others said, we had excellent conversations, some really frank discussions. I think an opportunity for city administrator to learn more about, where the council, mayor and council are, and their thinking, for us to learn more about the city administrator's thinking. And I think that we reached, a lot of agreement on, where the city needs to go and how we all want to see the city managed over the next few years. And I'm looking forward to, making all that happen. So it was a good day. And thanks again to Ms. Emma Halston and the rest of the staff who worked hard to help, make that a productive event.
Thank you, sir.
Let's move on now to, we removed the one bid from the agenda. We'll bring that back at a future meeting. We'll move on now to ordinances and resolutions. And first is introduction of ordinance number 940, amending fiscal year 2022 budget. And for that, we'll turn to Ms. Colston.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you're aware, the current fiscal year commenced on July 1st, 2021. In accordance with Article 2 of the Charter of the City of Westminster, the city administrator prepared a proposed budget on behalf of the mayor for the Common Council's consideration, and the ordinance 935 was adopted on May 10th, 2021. During the current year, it has become apparent that the city has incurred or will incur expenses exceeding the current appropriations. And as a result, additional appropriations are deemed necessary. A summary of those additions was included in your packet. Just an overview of those: $658,797 will be funded with ARPA funds. $1,307,535 is funded from prior year appropriations, and $74,058 will be funded through reserves. At this time, staff recommends that the mayor and common council adopt the amended budget appropriations as detailed in ordinance number 940. I am available for any questions, should you have any.
All right, thank you, Ms. Colton. Let's get a motion on the floor on this. May I have a motion to introduce?
Motion to approve.
Well, it's to introduce, but thank you, but I'll take that as a motion to introduce.
I'll second the introduction.
Motion to introduce by Mr. Dale, a second by Ms. Gilbert. Thank you very much. Let me just say, we're not gonna, we don't have a lot of discussion tonight because it is just for introduction, but I do want to say that the mayor and the finance committee, had a meeting where we discussed this extensively with staff, Ms. Imholz and Ms. Colston, and went into a lot of detail. And I think there's a lot of information in the staff package, which hopefully all of you had a chance to take a look at over the weekend. Ms. Imholz and I did have the opportunity to speak with all the council members who are not on the finance committee to acquaint everybody with some of the key items that were in there. We are happy, and I know the staff is happy to continue to answer questions over the next couple of weeks as we prepare to bring this back for adoption in 2 weeks. If anybody has any questions or comments right now, I'd be happy to entertain them, but otherwise we'll look forward to bringing it back in 2 weeks. Ms. Imholz, did you want to say something?
I did. I just wanted to remind you and the council that this part of the items in here also went through the Public Safety Committee.
Yes, thank you very much. Any questions or comments at this time? All right, hearing none, we will hold this over for a discussion and adoption at the next meeting.
Do we have to vote to introduce it, Mr. President?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. All those in favor of introduction, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have it, and the ayes have it. And we will, then move on, as I said, for adoption at the next meeting. Next item is introduction of ordinance number 939, amending chapter 164 zoning and subdivision of the Westminster City Code, Article 25, site plan, section 164-211, H, lapse of approval to add section 164-211 H2 to allow for a 1-year extension to an approved site plan. Mr. Depot.
Thank you. Pursuant to zoning ordinance section 164-211H, the site plan shall become null and void after 1 year from the date of approval unless a building permit has been issued and substantial work has begun on the project. Staff is requesting that the mayor and common council consider extending the 1-year null and void time period for site plans approved during the COVID-19 pandemic time period, due primarily to the lack of available workers and supply shortages. On October 6, 2021, the site plan extension concept was introduced to the Economic Community Development Committee. The committee supported the concept and recommended that an extension must be requested and that such request may be processed administratively or by the Planning and Zoning Commission and shall be valid for a limited time frame of 6 months to a year. The committee also recommended that due process be considered. The draft text amendment before you tonight proposes to add new section 164-2011 H2, allowing the zoning administrator to grant a 1-year site plan extension from the date an approved site plan would have otherwise lapsed, and require the property owner or developer seeking the extension to submit a written request to the Director of Department of Community Planning and Development. Limit extensions to site plans approved during the period from January 1, 2020 through December 31st, 2022. And finally, allow for 1 year, only one extension to be granted. Staff recommends that proposed ordinance 939 as introduced for consideration to the mayor and common council on October 25th, 2021 be referred to the Planning and Zoning Commission for its review and recommendation to the mayor and common council. And that completes my report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Depot. All right, we have a motion to introduce the ordinance.
I'll move, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. But a motion by Mr. Kavachi to introduce. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Hoff. Any questions or comments on the ordinance?
Yes,
Mr. Hoff.
Mr. President. Mr. Depot, I just want to clarify, I asked a question or two. I just want to make sure I'm understanding. The intention here is that if I asked for the 1-year extension, you're automatically giving in that. Is that correct? Or is it to your discretion that you're going to give that?
I spoke with Alyssa, the city attorney, and we did talk about that. Initially, we were looking at possibly the ability denial, but after discussion, it is an automatic approval. It's more processing, so we have a new denial date or lapse date. So anybody that falls within that time frame that requests an extension before it's null and void would be granted the 1-year extension.
So the intention is, if me as the applicant, as long as my plan has not already lapsed, I submit a request and you're basically automatically going to grant that request for a year. Okay, gotcha. And then, Mr. President, just to correct me if I'm wrong, we introduce this and then it goes to Planning Commission and then it comes back to us, or what is the?
In this instance, that's correct.
Yes.
That is correct.
Yes.
Okay.
All amendments to the zoning ordinance go to planning commission first.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, you did ask me to speak up. I
Yeah.
said all amendments to the zoning ordinance go to the planning commission by virtue of a separate provision in your zoning ordinance.
So once we introduce, it'll go to planning.
Yeah, I mean, the process would allow it to go to planning commission before it gets introduced, but then it has turned out to be most efficient to getting things adopted. If you introduce them, then they go.
So it'll go to Planning Commission and then it'll come back here. Okay. My only comment is just reading through the language. We'll work through it and kind of maybe tighten it up a little bit, because when I read what I read, I was kind of misunderstanding what the intent was. I just wanted to be really clear what the intent is. And then between now and going to Planning Commission and coming back here, I'm sure whatever we need to, address will get addressed. So, but I'm definitely supportive of this. I think, again, it's our effort as a city to try to be as friendly, as reasonable to the business community. And I think this is a great way to kind of help out the business community that's been, hit with projects during COVID, and they've been very slowed up. So I think it's great that we're doing this. So that's all my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Hoff.
Mr. President.
Ms. Gilbert.
The only question I have is, these are only site plans that were approved during the COVID-19 pandemic. So what are those dates? Just for clarification, I think more for the public. I'm just curious as to ending date.
Any plan that's approved between January 1st, 2020 and December 31st, 2022. So even projects that are currently under review, if they obtain approval, they can always come in and ask for that request as long as they fall within that time period.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. Anyone else? Mr. Depot, my recollection when the committee met and we had discussed this, and maybe I don't recall this correctly, but didn't we discuss that there would be basically one extension that could be requested that was kind of automatic? And then didn't we discuss the option of an additional extension beyond the 1 year that would then have to be sort of based on merit, that there would have to be a really good, kind of one's a gimme, and then the other one was going to be, well, you got to explain to us why you weren't able to get moving and use your water allocation and get things done in the time period we had, but that we weren't going to allow that to exist. And I thought that I can't recall if that was going to be something we left to your discretion, or that was something that had to come back to the mayor and council. But I thought we had discussed that additional time. Do you recall that?
Now that you mention it, I'm sorry. Yes, I do. Now that you bring it up, I do. We did discuss that concept. Unfortunately, I did not recall that at the time I wrote this and working with Alyssa. But absolutely, I think if that's what we're looking at, it's certainly something we can, as we move forward, because this isn't an introduction, I think we can add that for further discussion with the Planning and Zoning Commission.
All right, yeah, perhaps the Planning and Zoning Commission could discuss that as, if it has merit at the P and Z level, if there's agreement there, perhaps we'll bring it back that way.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, for remembering that. I did not.
I was paying attention.
I'm impressed. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this?
Mr. President,
Mr. Dayhoff.
that would make me happy if we did it that way. Because what we're requiring is that we be a certain prognosticator as to the epidemic or the pandemic and the capital markets. So I think that we should really make a provision for a second extension based upon the merits. I feel pretty strongly about that.
Well, and I would just say that the reason we discussed that, not to belabor this at this time, was that, we are very cognizant of the fact that we're tying up a water allocation that somebody isn't going to use in a timely fashion is not something we really want to do easily, right? I mean, because there's lots of demand and lots of interest, and so we don't want to sort of have water sitting out there for too long a time being unused, because that's revenue for the city of Westminster. That's economic activity that could be taking place in the city of Westminster a year earlier. And if so, somebody, I mean, in my thinking, if we do that, somebody's going to come back with a really good reason why they weren't able to act, because while water is in short supply, we want to make sure that it's being used in a timely fashion. So so it's a trade-off, and we want to. I think there's value in allowing for that opportunity. At the same time, we want to be aware that there's a good reason why we're cutting people off. That you got to use it or lose it. So that's.
And Mr. President, I just kind of want to just remind everybody to, codes are meant to be living. So also, if we run into technical issues 6 months down the road or a year down the road, there's no reason that we can't amend it further. So
I thought of that before I said anything, and then when Mr. Pecoraro said, but Mr. President, one follow-up.
Certainly.
Ordering materials is really difficult these days.
Well, that's one of the.
I mean, I've got a number of construction permits out, and I'm ordering windows that aren't going to come in for six months.
Right?
Yeah.
Better move them. We'll take your water.
Yes, sir.
Right. Thank you all. So we need to take a vote on introduction. All All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. The ayes seem to have, the ayes have it. And we will look forward to the report of the planning commission. Thank you. The next item is being held over until the mayor is again with us. We've already dealt with our item of unfinished business. I'm aware of no other unfinished business before the council. So we will move on to new business. Change order number 2 for the city's contract with Keller Brothers for the Diffendall Lot retaining wall project. Mr. Glass.
Yes, sir. The fiscal year 21 capital projects budget included funding for the repair of the retaining wall on the east side of Diffendall parking lot. The project consisted of installation of soldier piles and precast concrete panels to back up and take the existing of that, or take place of the existing failed gravity wall. January 2021, the mayor and common council accepted the bid from Keller Brothers and authorized mayor's execution of that contract in a not to exceed amount of $272,000 and change for the Diffendall lot retaining wall. This not to exceed figure was predicated on the base bid of $248,000 and change plus additional cost of $24,000 and change for the potential increase the a thin brick ad alternate that was consequently made available when we decided to go with the mural decision instead of adding the thin brick. Unfortunately, the results of the geotech report indicated that the soldier piles had to be increased in size to accommodate the less than optimal soil quality encountered, and that necessitated change order number 1 to the city's contract. Associated cost was $20,835 and change, and its approval increased the value of the contract to $268,858.42. In addition, there was underground obstructions of at depth subsurface concrete structures, which also increased the scope of work. And the resolution was to move the pilings and center line of the west wall about 18 inches to avert that condition. Moving the center line resulted in change order number 2 for additional layout, a modified return panel, and the stone backfill in that annular space between the 2 walls at a cost of $14,870. As noted, our budget for the project was $272,183, which is about $11,000 short, including this change order number 2. We expect the monies to cover this change order number 2 to be available from unspent funds in the current year priority 1 capital project. So at this point, staff would recommend that the common council approve change order number 2 to the city's contract with Keller Brothers and authorize its execution by the mayor. Please answer any questions if there would be any.
All right, thank you, Mr. Glass. May I have a motion on approving the staff recommendation?
Motion to approve.
So there's a motion to approve the staff recommendation is to approve change order number 2. I'll make that clear. Motion by Mr. Dayoff and a second by Mr. Cavacci. Is there any discussion or any questions from Mr. Glass? Hearing none, we'll move on to a vote. All those in favor of approving change order number 2, please say aye.
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 Those say nay. The ayes seem to have, the ayes have it, and change order number 2 is approved. Thank you, Mr. Glass.
Thank you.
Ms. Imhoff, we'll turn to you now for departmental reports.
Thank you. I want to thank the mayor and council for your continued support, for your kind words tonight, and for your hard work at the retreat. We are working hard to get these projects through that you've outlined are important to you, and we appreciate your continued support. I'm going to start tonight with our departmental reports, with our finance department. Ms. Colston has worked very hard to prepare the budget amendment that's before you tonight. And I really appreciate her hard work. In order to get to the place we're at, we had to go through many iterations and work with staff to make sure that all the details were in order, accurate, and Ms. Colston did an amazing job on that. So I'm going to turn things over to you for our first departmental report.
Okay. I have nothing departmentally to report, but I did want to thank you, the council and mayor, for the support of staff and the continuity of operations as demonstrated by the introduction of this ordinance, number 940. I also would really like to thank the Finance Committee for their guidance and their support in the development of the ordinance. It was extremely helpful to have that input and thought process, during the committee meeting. That would conclude my report.
Very good. Okay, I'm gonna pop all over the room tonight, if that's okay with you. We had a successful Halloween event yesterday and parade, so I'm gonna move things over to Ms. Gruber for the Recreation and Parks report.
Yes, good evening. I too would like to just take a moment to extend my deepest gratitude on behalf of the Recreation and Parks Department for the introduction of the budget ordinance and to see some support in there for an additional person. We turn out a lot of events and we operate with a very tight margin of staff to get those events out the door. And sometimes the calendar is very unforgiving where we only have 2 weeks in between events. So it is just incredibly assuring to see that there is the potential for some additional support in the Recreation and Parks Department. In the 8 years that I have worked here, our events have increased in size, sophistication, and complexity, and we've kept up. But it's a little challenging at times, especially when we look to, times in our history where we've had people go out for medical reasons or we've had staff leave employment at the city and we have gaps in our staffing levels and it just becomes a little precarious. So this certainly being contemplated helps me sleep at night and know that we can continue to put the best products out there for our community because they certainly do deserve fantastic services through the Recreation and Parks Department. With that said, on Saturday, we really had a wonderful Halloween event. We saw over 3,000 people turn out in the 3-hour time frame that our event was going on. We had trick-or-treating up and down Main Street from Route 27 to Longwell Avenue. We had crafts and games. Kids turned out in their costumes. And we concluded the day with a concert by our most favorite children's artist, Mr. John. He really gets the kids involved and up and moving with his songs. So it was really just a fantastic, heartwarming day in Westminster. And we're receiving a lot of positive feedback on Facebook right now as we continue to post photographs and ask our attendees that they too can post photographs. I would encourage you to go on if you were unable to attend the event and look at some of the really fantastic photos from the day. My favorite was we had a child dressed up as a traffic cone and we convinced 2 of our streets department employees to go have their photograph taken with our traffic cone. So I'd be happy to share that out. It's really a very interesting and hilarious photograph, and I will give a shout out to the Streets Department for their support and their fast turnover. We had a really small window of time to get our street and our event cleared before the Halloween parade came down. Well, the runners came through first. We had about 80 runners for the mile run, and then the parade followed. And I will also give a shout out to the police department because we had a flawless start to our 1 mile race this time around. So everything just worked seamlessly, and we really had a very, very short window of time to make sure that it all happened like that. So I did promise also the council and Ms. Imholz at the last meeting that I would have some Fall Fest numbers for you. And so we still are piecing together the financial picture, and I'm hesitant to really give you sort of where we land because we do like to keep that as sort of surprise for our charity partners. So I just started to wrap my arms around some other really interesting numbers that come out of Fall Fest. So we are open to the public for that event for 26 operational hours. As you know, we engage the help of 4 charity partners. Those charity partners recruit 320 volunteers, and collectively Those volunteers worked 11,840 hours over the course of the 4 days. Doesn't even seem possible. I checked the math, it's real. We were able to encourage 7 businesses to sponsor the event, bringing in $12,500 in revenue. We had 82 vendor spaces. 46 of those were artisan and craft people. 5 of those were commercial. 16 were food spaces. 6 were home-based businesses. 8 were nonprofit organizations, which helped with our kids zone. And then we did have 1 Pidaway premium space. Our vendors bring in approximately $20,000 to the event. On the grounds, which is in the park, that's where we have our scarecrow making tents, our dime pitch, the kids zone, bingo, and a little pumpkin patch for kids. So just some numbers there. We made over 200 scarecrows over the course of 4 days. Our public pitched 17,719 dimes into our dime pitch. We had over 1,000 children enter the gates of our kids zone. We sold 3,920 bingo cards at 25 cents a piece. And our general public plucked 235 pumpkins from our pumpkin patch and decorated those. Now the really interesting part, and certainly the meat of the event, is our amusements. And so our ticket sales were outstanding this year. We sold 27,602 tickets to our rides and amusements, and we sold 2,650 wristbands, totaling in revenue for the 4 days, $87,251. So we certainly had a very successful Fall Fest. Our numbers, by all accounts, are exceeding what we saw in 2019. Obviously, we don't have numbers from 2020. So we are hopeful that this will be a nice benefiting check to our charity partners, because they certainly did work hard, as you can see, and they deserve that. And we, again, aim to have those final numbers and checks in their hands during the month of December. So that concludes my Fall Fest numbers report. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Ms. Imholz, I have 2 quick questions. You mentioned something early in your report. I didn't quite hear what you said. There was a number related to businesses.
Mm-hmm.
What was that you said?
A home-based business vendor or
I thought you said, were you talking about the downtown businesses maybe or something? That you had gotten a number from them?
So we engaged our downtown businesses in the Halloween event. Some of those storefronts were open for.
Did you give us a number relative to that, a dollar figure?
I did.
Okay,
not.
then I misunderstood. You probably said home-based businesses, and that's probably what I misunderstood thinking, yeah. I can't hear perfectly. And then number 2, just very quickly, you made a comment, you said that the size and complexity of the events over the past 8 years have increased and become more challenging. You're selling yourself short. It's not just the size and the complexity. There's just more events. We've added a pretty significant number of them, I think, since you've come on board, partially because of you. And they're phenomenal events, and they're super important to downtown. So I think we're all enthusiastic to see the support for your department with this amendment. I'll have.
Ms. Gerber, as being the new one here, just for clarity, for my sake, and maybe for some of the viewing public. So the charity partners, is it you take all the revenue you collect and then minus what the cost is from our standpoint for the event, and then the quote profit from the event gets distributed to the 4 charities? Is that in theory basically how that works?
That is correct.
Okay, that I understand. Okay, so we have the gross revenue number. We're still calculating what the actual cost was for the city as far as all of our support and hours and all of that.
That's correct. We get the last, we think, of our receipts today, and then I'll engage the finance department, obviously, in auditing those records to make sure we didn't miss anything, so that we're actually producing an accurate, revenue figure and dispersing funds.
And then do you do a little report on just that? Is that how that works? Or the Fall Fest?
We have a very large spreadsheet that puts
Okay,
that all
gotcha.
in together.
Understand.
So
Okay.
yes.
Just curious. Just educating myself. Thank you.
Mr. President, may we have that report put in the minutes, please? Because I'm a geek for all those numbers.
Ms. Gruber's report just made.
Yeah, I would love to see all those numbers in the minutes.
Put
They're
those in a
great.
format that would work on. I'm sure, I don't know if she had just notes or that, but give them to, who is our acting city clerk right now? Mr. Holtz?
We don't have an acting city clerk right now,
Okay.
so she can give those to the administrator and I'll take care of that.
There you go. That sounds like a plan.
That's great. I love all the numbers. Thank you. But you know I love all the numbers. Thank you, Ms. Upholz.
I'm going to move on to the IT department. Just a quick reminder that we are switching over our email addresses to the following. So our email addresses at the beginning will stay the same, and then it will be at westminstermd.gov. Is that correct? At westminstermd.gov. That concludes the IT report. I'm going to move on now to the police department. Chief Ledwell.
Yes, good evening, council. I also want to sincerely thank the council for consideration with the budget amendment, specifically the effects on the police department. I sincerely think it'll go a long way in helping us to continue to attract and retain the highest quality applicants, lateral police officers, et cetera. And I also think it'll go a long way as far as consistency and peace of mind within the police department. So I'm very grateful. Thank you. As Councilwoman Kavachi mentioned earlier, the major and I went down to the annual Maryland Chiefs Association Professional Development Seminar. I thought it was very productive. Usually I attend 3 or 4 sessions within that I find of high value, and this year was no exception. We collectively delve through the legislative changes and everything that we're dealing with right now. We're currently working with Alyssa on a handful of Public Information Act requests regarding personnel records, things like that, that the law has changed on. And what is not quite as simple as that some records are releasable, some are not. There's notifications that need to be made, et cetera. So there was a lot of good discussion on that at the conference, as well as the other upcoming and current legislative changes. There was 2 keynote speakers that were extremely dynamic. One was a gentleman named Gordon Graham. He had 33 years as California Highway Patrol. He currently owns Lexapol, which is a big company that deals with risk management and police policy. And he talked a good bit about risk management, about leadership, about supervision, things like that. And I thought it was very thought-provoking, things that you don't necessarily think of unless they're brought up to you. And I left his presentation with a good bit of ideas floating around. I got on their website, did some research, so I'm excited about implementing some of those. There was another gentleman who he's a sheriff up in the state of New York in the northwestern corner, and he's experienced a lot of personal tragedy as well as organizational tragedy. And he talked a good bit about things like cumulative post-traumatic stress disorder, the importance of investment in, employee wellness. We talked about kind of marry that into risk management, and talked about statistically how many suicides there are in this profession versus officers that get killed in line of duty, and one's a lot higher than the other. So, investing in that kind of thing is important. And there were a number of, policing and personnel matter strategies. So I thought it was very, very good conference. We have a meeting tomorrow, or follow up to the overdose response protocol action team. I couldn't be more pleased with the direction and the success that this group has had thus far. We've already acquired some investigative software for our detectives. We've got a lot of key stakeholders involved, which I think is crucial to making things move forward. And we've done some additional research into some other jurisdictions that are doing some really innovative things that with the data, with the collaboration. So I'm looking forward to continuing that. I believe that's all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Chief. We're going to move on now to the Housing Department and Mr. Brown.
Good evening. Thank you very much. As you all know, Mark Depot, Andrew Gray, and I had the opportunity to represent the city at the ribbon cutting for Westminster Way. Westminster Way is a 35-unit mid-rise apartment building that is mixed income. By mixed income, I mean that there are market rate units as well as affordable units in the project. The apartment units have 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms, and it's really, really spacious. The quality of the work is very good. Spacious, got a closet space, storage space, carpeting. There are several handicap units there. Some of the amenities are there's a fitness center, security cameras, energy efficient appliances, controlled access. Like you don't have a key to go in. There's like a little card or something that you use instead of a key for accessibility. There's security cameras in. The parking, there's plenty of parking as well as parking under the garage. And we found to be interesting that they had 2 electric vehicle charging stations in the underground. They had also a smart card laundry room where the resident can go and put the little credit card in there and then wash their clothes. And it was just a fabulous setup. So it was our honor and our pleasure to represent you there.
Thank you, sir.
One question, just, so it's a market rate as well as, so how does it work on the part that isn't market rate?
The way that it's marked, the way it works for the affordable portion, it's when they put the financing together, there is a low-income housing tax credit, which has a base that it has to reach. There's also some 811, which deals with handicap and accessibility kinds of things. So they set aside some number of units for that. All of this financing got mixed together, and because of the nature, the way in which it was financed, then they have a certain affordability period. For example,
so the building owner has to rent so many affordable units.
That is correct.
It's not a voucher, it's not a program, it's nothing like that. That's all on the building owner himself to prove that he does rent so many affordable units.
That's correct. That's part of the when they put the financing together, that became some part of the commitment had to be made in order to be able to get the kind of financing that they got in order to make the units affordable.
What is the percentage, just out of curiosity? You know,
the percentage, I don't know off the top of my head, but I can check when I get back.
I was just curious.
I'll send you a note.
Yeah, I'm just curious from an educational standpoint.
I know it's tiered. I believe it's not all one or the other. I believe there's
a certain number. There's a certain number they have to put in a certain income band. So if you may have some less than 30% of AMI, all the way up to 60% of the area median income. And the area median income is like $105,000 because you're in the Baltimore SMA, the metropolitan, Baltimore Towson SMA. And so that's why you see the $101,000.
And some of them are pure market rate.
Yes, some of them are pure market rate.
Interesting. I'm just kind of curious, so I would like to.
That
would be great.
I'll shoot you an email.
Plus 30% of the market rate, and then the other 70% are tiered. Gotcha.
Thank you. We're gonna move on to Public Works. Class.
Just a few things to report. The ENR project continues to move forward. It's activity in every area of the system. First, we're looking forward. I think the next milestone is the start off of the denitrification filters. And that's going to happen in the next few months. Unfortunately, it's over the winter time. That's not the best time to do that, but that's how it's fallen into the sequence. Also to report on the Purewater Westminster project, we've moved now into the second phase of the pilot. You will recall that the first phase was utilizing a different manufacturer in a head-to-head kind of competition for the microfiltration portions. We're done with the first manufacturer and have moved on to the second at this point. And then lastly, again, like everyone has, I'd like to thank the council for the introduction of the budget amendment. This is going to provide specifically for the public works, the retention of experienced employees and the continuity of operations as well. This move is going to pay you considerable returns for years to come if it's adopted. There's no doubt in my mind about that. I'd also be remiss if I didn't thank Ms. Imhouse as well for her hard work and listening as well. She has, in her 7 weeks that she's been here, she's proven to me that she's the most effective administrator I've had the pleasure to work with. And that says something to come from me. So
yes, it does.
It does.
thank you.
Thank you, sir. We're gonna move on to planning.
Thank you. I was going to mention that too, Eric, but no, it was a very good day. It was a beautiful day and the facilities is fantastic. I learned a lot walking through it with Eric. Some of the elements of this type of design, handicap accessibility elements. So it was very impressive, the project. So again, it was a very nice day. With that, the Board of Zoning Appeals, they do not have any items before them in November, so no meeting is scheduled. The Historic District Commission has 2 items tentatively scheduled for November 3rd. It's a tax credit application requirement discussion. So there's been a lot of discussions of how we handle tax credit applications, what's required for these applications. So that's going to be brought up in the next meeting, as well as a facade improvement program application for 121 East Main Street. The Planning Commission has 4 items tentatively scheduled for November 11th. The site development plan for Raising Cane's Chicken. This is being located where the Denny's is currently located today. The site development plan for Valvoline. This is at Route 140 and Gorsuch Road. There's a veterinary facility that's not in operation right now. The proposed resolution 2105 that we heard tonight, and the water and sewer amendment triannual update is also scheduled. Just a quick point, the position, the comprehensive plan 1/2 position that has an emphasis on Main Street management and economic development. We have interviews scheduled for this week.
Good.
So fingers crossed, we will have somebody in-house soon. And that completes my report.
Mr. Debo, one question. Are we going to go back to live meetings on planning and zoning? Is that on the radar screen? Just out of curiosity.
I want to emphasize the ability for public to view the meetings. I think until we have the facilities in the building, we're still going to.
That we can stream as well. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to the Human Resources Department.
You're up. Good evening, Council. I'd like to thank you for introducing the budget. These funds will ensure continuity operations and also help with retention of employees. Thank you very much. That concludes my report.
Thank you. So a couple of things. You've seen a similar story amongst staff, and that is because we are a united front in thanking you for your support. The staff is united in their needs. There's been no sort of infighting when it comes to the budget needs from the staff. They bring forward what's important to them, and And they have just been in support and agreement of that. And they're in united support of the council for that. We really appreciate that. Before I move off of the Human Resource Department, I want to take this opportunity while we have Ms. McCullough here to highlight what she has done for us in my very short time here. She has been an absolute anchor for all of our staff. We've had a variety of personnel issues that we've had to address. Those usually come very quick and have to be moved on very quick. And Ms. McCullough's guidance and hard work has been invaluable to me and to the rest of the staff. And her intuition can be taken to the bank. So while we have you here in front of council, I know she's not here every meeting, but I just want to take the time to really thank you for all your hard work. And I look forward to working with you more in the future.
Thank you.
We only have the fire department report left.
Thank you, Ms. Emmons. For September 2021, we had 564 calls. Of these calls, EMS were 472 and fire was 92. 317 were within the city limits. 50% of them were overlapping calls, for a total number of calls for the year of 4,877, and we are way ahead of last year. We are probably going to hit 8,000 calls a year by the time we're finished. Also want to take make note of the passing of one of the first certified EMS providers in the department, Dave Hashard. It's interesting, at the City of Westminster, we have a number of EMS providers and engineers that are airline pilots. They are nuclear engineers. Mr. Hashard was a nuclear engineer. He just happened to be an EMS provider at the City of Westminster and an engineer. He just passed away. Years and years and years of distinguished service for the community. We mourn his loss. It's a great loss for the community. Thank you, Ms. Emmons.
That concludes the departmental reports, Mr. President.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Emmons, and all the department heads. And on behalf of the mayor and council, I wanted to say thank you to Mr. Brown and Mr. Depot and Mr. Gray, who is not with us, for stepping in our place and attending the dedication ceremonies at Westminster Way. We'd all been invited, and of course, it happened while we were in the midst of our strategic planning session, so we couldn't attend, but we appreciate very much you showing the flag for us. So thank you very much. Final item on our agenda is citizen comments, when we invite the public to address the mayor and council on any issues pertaining to tonight's agenda or any other city issues. For citizens not attending the public meeting, we invite them to send us their comments or concerns via email at comments@westgov.com. All comments received by email will be shared with the mayor and council. Commentators should include their address and phone number with their comments. Is there anyone tonight here who wishes to be heard? Seeing no one, we'll move on to the real final item, which is adjournment. That concludes our agenda and the meeting. Our next regular meeting will be held on Monday, November 8th. Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Brown, do you